Rita's here, prepare them butts, I guess. So let's start breaking Rita's kit down for you. We're gonna be going over all of her cards, but before we do that, very important thing you need to know about her. There's two very important buffs. We'll also show you her ego skill here as well. And as you can see, the ego skill grants you 6 Chronal Ascension. Now, Chronal Ascension is going to be a special buff for Rita herself, and it reads as follows. When Rita's basic or unique card is used, it's going to use Chronal Ascension stacks as the cost. So if you have something that costs 3 AP and you have 3 Chronal Ascension stacks, it's going to cost you 0 AP, and just use those Chronal Ascension stacks first. Another note here is you're unable to gain Chronicle for costs used through Chronal Ascension, which is going to be a way that you can gain access to Chronal Ascension. And at the end of the turn, you're going to remove all Chronal Ascension. So this is a very important part, unable to gain Chronicle for costs through Chronal Ascension. What does that mean? What is Chronicle? Chronicle is as follows. Now, number 1, at the start of the turn, it's going to decrease any Chronicle you have, and you will gain Chronal Ascension for each Chronicle that you have decreased there, up to a maximum of 6. So Chronicle is basically the secondary buff that you have to wait till the start of the turn, or we'll get to it as well. There's an ultimate card that will transform them ultimately and instantly on your turn, and then it will turn it into the Chronal Ascension. So she's got this little bit of a dance where she wants to gain Chronicle, turn it into Chronal Ascension, and that is going to help pay for costs on her cards. Now, her EP skill is Hour of Glory. You activate it, it's going to give you 6 of that Chronal Ascension. That's the one that's actually useful to you, all right, immediately. And then it's also going to increase the damage amount of the next attack card of Rita that is used by 10% for the combined costs of all cards activated this battle, up to a maximum of 200%. So if you've played, 20 costs worth of cards that battle, it's going to give you a 200% next attack card as well. Bonus to the next attack card multiplicatively, which is pretty decent at the end of the day, because you're also gaining access to 6 of your Chronal Ascension. So you're going to want to use her EP skill as like the coup de grace, like final attack. I'm buffing up the biggest hit I can do on my Rita at the end of the battle after I've already spent like 20 AP costs worth of cards. I'll activate my ego skill, and it'll be doing good things there. On top of that, it's also giving you 6 Chronal Ascension, so it's worth 6 AP worth of cards for Rita. So the first group of cards here we're going to be looking at is going to be the Chrono Archon, her upgrade card. All of these are going to help you gain those Chronicle and Chronal Ascension stacks. The first one, the basic Epiphany, if we want to call it that. Unique Initiation. When a card is activated, you're going to gain 1 Chronicle for each cost of that card. And then at the end of the turn, when Chronal Ascension is removed, you're going to gain 3 Chronicle as well. So this can help you be, a little bit decent there. And keep in mind, it's when a card is activated. So this should in fact work. For instance, if you have like Hue 9 in your team, right? A 3-cost Hue with Fighting Spirit, you can cast Fighting Spirit for 1. That's going to be 1 cost. That's going to be giving you Chronicle for that. And then it's going to activate the 3-cost Hue, which will also work with this version of Chrono Archon. And then at the end of the day, when you're done with your turn, when Chronal Ascension is being used and removed, it's going to give you a little bit of that Chronicle back. So the next turn, or maybe even immediately, if you want to follow it up with our ultimate card, you can gain a Chronal Ascension again. The second one here, basically the first is the same, but instead of giving you that 3 Chronicle, when you remove Chronal Ascension, it's going to deal 100% damage to a random enemy for each Chronal Ascension that you have. Not my favorite. And then 3, 4, and 5 are just going to be different ways that you can gain Chronicle stacks. So you can gain Chronicle stacks when a card is exhausted with number 3, when a card is discarded with number 4, or when a retain effect is activated with number 5. So there's obviously a lot of different characters out there you're already thinking of, right? If you're looking for exhausts, Tefera, Ray, right, Cassius, a lot of different things you can do there to gain Chronicle stacks very quickly. Discarding cards, Nia, Shuffle, right, with Adagio on Cassius. Adagio on Cassius. Nia has Adagio, Cassius has Shuffle. That'll help you there. And then retain effects, right? We're popping off with different retain cards, barrel teams, Orlia squads. You can gain activations for Chronicle off Epiphany 5 there. Now, Time Axis Collapse is going to be her next card. These are all going to be different attack type cards, or cards that are going to be buffing up the damage that you have on your Rita in varying ways. The first one, 450% base mod, and the damage increases by 20% for each combined cost of cards in your hand, up to a maximum of an additional 200%. So if you have like 10 AP worth of cards in your hand, you go to cast Time Axis Collapse, you're gonna go from a 450 mod up to a 650 mod for 2 AP, which can be used in played for free basically off of her Chronal Ascension stacks if you decide to do that one. The second Epiphany reduces the cost down to 1. It's a 300% multiplier, but the damage is increased by 30% for each 1 cost card or lower in hand as well. So if you have a bunch of zeros in your hand, right, a full like 1 to 0 cost hand, you can get a big damage bonus on this version of Time Collapse. So you have a both big card damage bonus with the first Epiphany and a small card damage bonus with the second one. The third one's going to be a skill, costs 3, and it increases the damage of the next 3 attack cards that Rita uses by 100% each. Small little bonus, not my favorite thing, but maybe we can do something cool with that. Epiphany 4 Time Axis Collapse has Retain on it, costs 3 AP, 40% damage multiplier, and it also will put 2 vulnerable on an enemy, which is pretty interesting. There's not a ton of characters that have just vulnerability on demand, but super cool one here. When Chronal Ascension is gained, activate this card if it is in hand, which is cool. Now, this is a pretty decent card. I think some players, based on how this is written, isn't seeing this correctly. Remember, it's not like activate this card and it like stays in your hand. It's not activate this card's retain effect. This card doesn't have a retain effect. It just has retain. So if you just have it sitting in your hand, Chronal Ascension is gained, it should just kind of like free cast itself, and then it removes itself from your hand. You're not just getting to sit this in your hand and gain vulnerability stacks over and over and over every turn. The final one for Time Axis Collapse, 2 AP, 250% mod, and in addition to that, it's going to change the cost of all Fate imprints in your hand to 4, which is great because what exactly is Fate Imprint? I'm glad you asked. Fate Imprint is going to be like her mainstay sort of damage dealing card that kind of puts everything in her kit together. So let's take a look at that right now. Now, Fate Imprint at its base, when you generate one, is a 2-cost attack card with both Retain as well as Exhaust, and it reads as follows: 120% damage for each cost of this card. So the base version costs 2, 120% per each cost, 240% mod. It also increases the cost of all Fate imprints in your hand by 1 when you cast it. So if you can generate multiple Fate imprints, the first one you cast is going to increase the other ones, which increase their damage because the damage scales off of how much they cast. You can kind of see where that goes as well. In addition to that, Fate Imprint also does indeed read that when this card leaves your hand, you change the cost to 2. So if you're discarding it, putting it back on top of the deck with like Adagio or something, it will reset its cost. Outside of that, it shouldn't really be able to leave your hand in any other way because it has Retain, so it's going to sit there. You can't just naturally discard it. And it also has Exhaust as well. So once you, cast it or activate it in some way, that bad boy is gone for good. So one of the only ways I can think of to reset the cost back down to 2 here is to, discard it with someone like Adagio, Nia, Shuffle from Cassius, something like that. A future Decreed here as well. This is going to be one of her other cards. The first iteration, 0 cost, increase the cost of 1 2-cost card or lower by 1 until it's used, and then activate 1 random 3-cost card. So you can use this to maybe bump someone's 2-cost card up that's in your hand up to a 3-cost card and have this card immediately activate it for you. You could have this increase a cost of a 1-cost card to a 2-cost card, and you have a separate 3-cost card in your hand and activate that. It's a little weird, it's a little wonky. There might be something to do there with it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of weird because we have the next one here, which is just 0 cost. Activate 1 random 3-cost attack card in your hand. So if you have a designated 3-cost card you want to activate for free, like one of the versions of Hue, right? You can go ahead and get the second Epiphany and always activate that card. What would you use the first Epiphany for? Well, the first Epiphany is if you're trying to use Rita in like a support DPS scenario where you want to start casting 2-cost cards with her for free. The difference between the two of them, though, is that you're going to have a lot of cards in your hand that cost between, 2 or lower. So that can hit anything that costs 0 or 1 or 2. So using that first Epiphany compared to the second one seems a little weird to me. We have the third one here of Future Decreed. 3-cost skill activates 1 random 3-cost attack card in your draw pile. You're not saving anything. This is sort of like a weird tutor, right? You're spending 3, getting 3 AP worth of value, and it comes out of your draw pile. So it's kind of like go and play that card out of your deck for free. If you only have like a single 3-cost card floating around your deck, this could be useful there for you as well. Also keep in mind, it's a 3-cost attack card only. The fourth Epiphany for Future Decreed, 2-cost, activate 2 random 2-cost cards in your hand. This one actually is pretty decent because you spend 2 AP and you get 4 AP worth of value. So if you wanted to spend, and form a team of multiple different 2-cost cards, and you want to put Rita in there for Future Decreed, and you want to get some value out of that, you can compare this fourth Epiphany to the first Epiphany. And I think the fourth Epiphany is, quite a bit better at getting some free value out of those 2-cost cards, because you don't have to do the whole I have 0s and 1s and 2s in my hand, and I have to randomly increase one of them by 1, and then hopefully hits the right one, hopefully hit the right 2, and all this other stuff. And no. So that's going to be the fourth Epiphany for Rita there. Third Epiphany here, Future Decreed. Interesting one. It's an upgrade. When a card whose cost is increased is used manually, 30% damage to a random enemy, which I'm not sure how this is going to go down. I think this Epiphany is kind of whatever in a lot of situations out there. You can utilize this with her own Fate imprints. If you have Future Decreed out there, every time you cast a Fate imprint, they're increasing the cost of the other Fate imprints, which is going to allow you to get some free damage bonus off of Future Decreed as well. That is the original use case scenario I can see for that version of Future Decreed. Is it my favorite thing ever? Probably not. Is this character my favorite thing ever? I'm not sure. Let's get to the final card here when it comes to Rita in the form of Chronal Circle. The first one here is probably going to be one of her best ones. Now, she does have some unique skill sets, some unique builds that come entirely off of this card. First Chronal Circle creates 3 of those Fate imprints. The second Chronal Circle creates 2 Fate imprints, but it also has retain, and it has a retain effect on it as well, where if you retain the card of Chronal Circle, it's going to automatically generate a Fate imprint for you, which is pretty cool. So if you want to have a little bit more ease of setup, the Epiphany 2 can help you, right? You set up the first turn, you don't cast the Chronal Circle, it on your second turn is generating some Fate imprints for you. Maybe you dupe this card, right? And you have 2 of these sitting in your hand. You start your second turn, create 2 Fate imprints. You still have the Chronal Circles in your hand that you can cast for 1 each, and those will generate 2 more Fate imprints. So now you can have 6 Fate imprints in your hand. Maybe you worked on generating some of her unique buffs for her Chronal discount, and you have a bunch of different stuff that you can cast for your Fate imprints that turn. It's a possibility. Maybe it's going to be a bit of a balance between how much AP you can generate and how much fake AP you can generate through Rita's own buff system. We'll have to see about that one. The third one here, Chronal Circle upgrade. Unique, when Chronal Ascension is gained, it moves all basic cards of this unit to your hand. Now, one thing I do want to note here for you is I do believe that unlike most other characters in the game who have like simple 1-cost cards that have decent multipliers, traditional basic stuff, Rita's base attack cards are actually 3-cost cards, and they're like a 300 and something multiplier. I think after you do all of her potential nodes, they're about like a 480% multiplier they should be. So you get like a 480% mod for 3 AP. You can utilize this version of Chronal Circle. So when you gain Chronal Ascension, you will move those basics back to your hand. Do note that it's move. So there is some situations where you start the turn, you have the ability to cast both of those with your Chronal Ascension stacks there. You gain some more Chronal stacks. You use her ultimate card to gain Chronal Ascension again to then move those cards back to your hand and cast them again. You can also use something like Raise 0 cost skill that activates all basic attack cards in your hand. You can cast that for 0, use them for free, gain some Chronal Ascension, move those back out of your graveyard to your hand and cast them again. So there's going to be some sort of unique play out there with Chronal Circle, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure if that's going to like warp the meta or anything crazy out there, considering we'll be, you know, filling our decks with 3 cost basic attack cards to utilize this version of Chronal Circle, but it is something to think about out there. Epiphany 4 for Chronal Circle, select and exhaust 1 exhaust card from all of your cards, and then create a fate imprint for each cost of that card. This is going to be useful. Think for a second like the Lumen that we have in Season 2, right? You can cast this version of Chronal Circle, select and exhaust it from anywhere. So if you have like a Lumen in your deck somewhere, which is the neutral card, costs 3, once it's exhausted, you don't have to play it. It just draws you 3 cards. Pay 1, remove that, draw 3 cards, make 3 fate imprints, have a good time there. There could be something decent out there, some more exhaust support. If we see some more future exhaust stuff, that could be cool as well. It's also a little bit of deck thinning if you just have some exhaust cards you don't necessarily care about. But do keep in mind that you only benefit off of this if you're exhausting cards that have decent AP values. If you're exhausting Shadow Daggers and Teferi stuff, those all cost 0. So you're going to select an exhaust card and then create 0 fate imprints because their AP cost was 0. The last one here for Chronal Circle is an upgrade. And well, this one could be kind of cool as a supportive option for her. Now, 3 cost upgrade, unique. When Chronal Ascension is gained, draw 3 2-cost attack cards. So if you have someone with a bunch of payoff cards that you want to do cool stuff with, maybe you want to go and get Haru's Anchor Shot or some of the Kairon 2-cost cards. If you're playing with those characters, pull them out of the deck. Maybe you're playing with like Yuki with her, Flash Blade that costs like 2 each. You gain some Chronal Ascension, draw them all out of the deck. All trigger Inspire, all reduce themselves. Do some cool stuff that way. So she's got some unique stuff that she has to work with here. At the end of the day, when all things are said and done, I think she'll be a pretty decent character. My first impressions here is that she's not going to be awful. She's also not going to be entirely game breaking though. She has the potential to work pretty decently in the future with exhaust teams, retain teams, discard teams, potentially. The question will always be though, if you look at her kit, you look at all of the cards combined, and I think a lot of the times, yes, I don't think Rita's going to be typically in there as a full support character. She's either going to be in there as a DPS that the team is focused around making her better by helping her get her cards and helping facilitate whatever game plan you want to be doing damage with your Rita, whether it's with a basic attack Rita build, time axis collapse, Chronal Circle to generate her retain and exhaust cards and do damage that way. There are going to be things to do with her there. I would focus, if you're thinking about pulling on this character, as not a support character, as a DPS character, or even a support DPS character in some shape, way, or form. If you're looking at Rita and you're saying, I don't want to use any of her attack cards, I'm not interested in casting any of the stuff that she creates for damage, I want to remove all the attack cards out of her deck, I'm really attracted to her support stuff, I'm not sure if you will end up being happy with this character strictly for her supportive aspects, because she's got a lot of hoops to jump through, because she needs to generate Chronicle, turn the Chronicle into the Chronal Ascension buff. That way all of her expensive stuff can be then played for free, basically a couple of times per turn. It's going to give her a couple of cards she can cast for free, and you're going to be doing support damage that way. And like with all card games, there's a lot of cooking potential because there's a lot of stuff going on in this character's kit. And to fully break it down, you know, a few hours after all of the cards were released, I would lie to you if I said, oh, 100% I know if this character is good or is bad. But with how complex she is and the limitations on what she does, and her being half support, half damage, and wanting to work with different characters in different ways, the potential is there. I just don't see it being obtusely broken right off the bat like we could see with some of the other characters that were released. I also have a couple other things that I'm not sure I'm going to put in this video about whether or not I'm pulling for her. I'm kind of against it right now. And if I can fully, well, in a few hours, collect my thoughts about why, I'll put that one out for you as well.